ESPN Radio 1080, The Team.
ESPN 1080 The Team here. Here we go, Eric Lopez alongside
Here we go.
Carson Ingle, and we got an old friend here, Carson, joining us.
He is behind the glass once again.
Thanks for reminding me about that.
Always.
South Beach, San Diego, and I'm back this weekend.
And that is, of course, our MMA insider himself, Brian Wininger, getting his own segment back. Why? Because there's a lot of MMA news, ladies and gentlemen. UFC 134 in Brazil, and then the big TV contract UFC signs with Fox, leaves Spike Television. Let's start with that big news. Fox, UFC gets the Fox network. Your thoughts on that deal?
It's a 7-year deal. It committed to 4 fights on the actual Fox network, and then it's about 6 or 8 FX shows. So I love it. It's just one more step that the UFC and MMA in general needs to take to becoming that mainstream sport, respected sport. You know, Spike was a great host for it, but now's the time. The evolution is now for Fox, and obviously Dana White pulled the trigger on it, so they're ready. I'm stoked.
The first show, November 12th. They decide to go Saturday night, first debut on Fox, prime time, the same night as Manny Pacquiao's fight against Marquez. Your thoughts on, very shrewd move trying to go up against boxing, kill some of their rates?
Yeah, no, Dana does this.
It's always been his, his calling card.
He's done this before.
Right.
Yeah, and he used to, when they didn't own Strikeforce, he used to put UFC cards up against Strikeforce cards. He's one of those guys that knows he's got the best show in town. And if Pacquiao was fighting Mayweather, maybe I'd give boxing the edge there, but no. First debut.
Boxing gonna get crushed.
Yeah, they're gonna get crushed in the ratings. Especially it's the debut on Fox. Fox is gonna promote the hell out of it.
What do you expect from the broadcast? Will it be the same?
Yeah, they said that the UFC is going to have sort of some prevailing control over who they want in their broadcast team, and everything else will be Fox. So you'll have pregame, postgame stuff that will get sort of packaged around the actual broadcast, and they're going to pick different people, whether they're in-house right now at Fox or to-be-hired individuals.
Yeah, and that's the major thing. It's Fox. Fox covers the NFL, Major League Baseball. Spike doesn't do that. So it's just that other step up in the progression of the sport, and it's gonna be money. And I am looking forward to the new set, the new broadcast. How exactly it's gonna change. I have all the confidence in the world that's gonna be great.
Gus Johnson, who has done some MMA broadcasting for Showtime, is on Fox now, so he could be a factor in this. Could he not be?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Gus knows his stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a point. And then also, what's different, of course, is the structure of the UFC's reality show, The Ultimate Fighter. That's changed a little bit, so there's some differences there now, and I guess to make it maybe more TV friendly, and that moves over, of course, to FX,
right?
The the kind of little sister station there for Fox.
Well, I want to hit you up on that, Carson, because for those who don't know, Carson Ingle works for Icy Places, covers entertainment, movies, you name it, television. This is a big, not just a sports story, but entertainment. I think this kills Spike Television as we know it. They've been struggling in the ratings.
MMA, the UFC
that
is sort of
that was their
baby.
rating.
That's their guy.
Now, and from what I've read, I think Spike's going to go in a different direction from a demographic standpoint.
Direction.
Right. This is a big
kills
decision.
it for us, right? Forget them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's how I would put it.
Well, with Spike too, you have to realize Ultimate Fighter is in its 13th season, so you lose a TV show in its 13th season, and with no end in sight. So you lose that content. What other show besides The Simpsons and MASH back in the day? You lose that. You lose that great content. And yeah, I think it's going to be
quite
great.
a reference, a MASH reference.
Right. I was drawing a blank.
Didn't expect that.
Neither did I.
It's all right.
Thank you. No, but but it's going to be interesting how Spike comes back with that.
Big success. Do you guys predict big success?
Oh, yeah.
It's good because it gives them, I think, multiple platforms. Yes. They kind of keep that smaller card portion on broadcast television with FX, which is similar to what they did on Spike and on Versus. Now you get that network television component in Fox, and you still get to keep pay-per-views, so you still keep that sort of culture and people going out to bars and watching some of the fights as well. So it wins on all sides for the UFC in this.
Right, and those people still out there that need to be convinced on the sport,
sure.
Fox legitimizes it.
Right, because I think you'll see UFC commercials during NFL games,
sure,
etc. That's going to be big promotion that they have not gotten before, and it keeps growing and growing. So that's going to be exciting.
Well, and the thing I have confidence, too, is that Dana White's been asked about these network deals for, the last 6 years now. And he's always said, we don't need them. But when the time is right and the deal is right, we're going to strike.
Should be exciting. We'll certainly look forward to seeing that. It starts November 12th, but a primetime special at 9 Eastern. Then they will start from there at January.
Most likely the card will be in Anaheim. We don't have any confirmed fighters on the card yet, but you can bet that the UFC is going to at least give us one pretty big title fight on that card and some really entertaining stuff.
That's a great point. Would you not agree, Brian? I mean, if you're going up that night, it's the Pacquiao fight night. You got to come up with somebody big, right?
Right. This next Versus card is going to be the bantamweight title fight against Cruz and Johnson. And it's the first time on non-pay-per-view venue that there's going to be a title fight. So that is going to be interesting. I don't know if they're going to do a title fight November 12th. I think it would just be too big. It's going to definitely be a contender fight, and that card is going to be stacked from top to bottom. But as a title fight, that'll be interesting. I wouldn't guarantee it because the UFC is just, they have that many good fighters and that many compelling matchups that I don't know. I'm not as confident as Mr. Carson Ingle over there.
We'll see what develops. Yeah. Carson's surprised by that.
Yeah.
Another quick note before we go through preview the pay-per-view. Brock Lesnar comes out with a video on Heyman Hustle, of all things, announces he's back, he's healthy, he's ready to go. He says he's ready to compete again in the octagon. Your early thoughts on Brock Lesnar, who's been out for a while due to the illness and the surgeries he's gone through?
I hope he's better. I hope he's really, because this is the same thing that sidelined him 2 years ago. But if he's back and he's healthy, he's great for the sport. He got pretty beat down by Cain Velasquez. That opened my eyes. I thought Brock was going to run right over him. So he really got his stand-up game exploited, and you can't work on that when you're sitting in a hospital bed. It'll be interesting to see if he comes back the same dominant Brock Lesnar that we know him of. But
what's the timetable? What's the word in the street? What's the timetable for him, they think? Next year?
Early next year,
yeah.
I think. That'd probably make the most sense. And, again, Dana's not going to put him in a situation where he's going to put him in the optimal situation for him to succeed, and so I'm thinking sometime early next year.
Of course, that's Brian Wininger, our MMA insider, alongside Carson Ingle. I'm Eric Lopez here on ESPN 1080, The Team. All right, let's go through this card here, Brian. It's a pretty big card, a big international card, the big one, in Brazil, home of Royce Gracie. Your thoughts here? Give the audience here the early look.
I think it's huge. It's the birthplace of MMA. You've got the best fighter in the world, Anderson Silva, going up against Yushin Okami for the middleweight championship. Shogun Rua against Forrest Griffin. 3. They're both 1-1 in that. That'll be compelling. Brendan Schaub, up-and-coming heavyweight, fought on Ultimate Season 10. He's fighting Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, another legend. Big Nog, another legend. So you've got 3 the biggest Brazilians on this card, which was, obviously planned that way. But the UFC hasn't been back to Brazil since it's been the modern-day UFC.
Right.
So, it's going to be huge. Since UFC 100, this is probably the next biggest card in the promotion's history.
And you've got 12 Brazilians overall with the main card and preliminary fights fighting throughout the night. And you're right. The fights, especially those top 3, bring a lot of name recognition into it, bring a lot of interest, of course, locally in Brazil. And then just from a perspective of a UFC fan, there's a lot of excitement and interest there to look at.
Yeah. And, even the prelim cards that are on Spike, Thiago Tavares is fighting Spencer Fisher, and Rosemar Perlares, great jiu-jitsu fighters, fighting Dan Miller. So, you got names everywhere. So, even the common fan can get into this card.
Give me the one fight both of you are looking forward to the most. If you can pick one fight that you definitely do not want to miss, what is it?
Well, for me, it's going to be Anderson Silva. I think whenever Anderson Silva's fighting, I'm going to pay attention to that the most. And the other thing, why I think this is such an interesting fight is because he's fighting Yushin Okami, who's a wrestler, who will take you down. And Chael Sonnen, the only man to have nearly beaten Anderson Silva since he's been in the UFC, was a wrestler, took him down. So I think if Yushin Okami implements that game plan, who knows? I like Silva. It's in Brazil, biggest fight of his career or whatnot. But I'm interested in to see how Anderson Silva defends the takedown.
Well, obviously that's the fight. But you know what? I'll take a different perspective, and I'll be a little bit of a homer at the same time. We at Icy Places are sponsoring Ross Pearson in his lightweight bout against Edson Barbosa. And this, I think, has a potential to be fight of the night. Both of these guys are strikers. Pearson's only lost once in the UFC. Barboza comes in at 8-0. And these guys really, I mean, Barboza's got one submission win in his career. I don't think this is going to the ground. I think both guys are going to kind of slug it out. They're lightweights. They're going to move quick. I mean, this could be one of those really exciting fights that the casual fan even likes quite a bit.
No, I would definitely agree with you on that. Edson Barboza is this up-and-coming lightweight, big lightweight. But yeah, he throws down. He's 8-0, one submission victory, the rest KO or knockout. And then Pearson's always exciting, man. I love that guy on the Ultimate Fighter, man. He's a little monster. He fights out of England, huge boxing, huge stand-up. So
it's really interesting
it's gonna be a war.
What a feeder system the Ultimate Fighter has become, because you see those guys right back-to-back in Schaub and Pearson, now UFC mainstays, really. Forrest Griffin, of course, from way back in the day.
Yep.
And so it's just become something that's so essential to the UFC.
Right, and the reason for that is because the UFC gets these great fighters that no one's heard of, and what happens is these guys start training with the best in the world. They join, Ultimate Couture. They join Jackson's camp. Ross Pearson, Rough House, Rampage is there. So, iron sharpens iron, and it's definitely been a legitimate minor leagues almost development for the UFC and superstars. So I think, it's awesome, and it's going to be interesting what Fox does with it.
Let's go through the rest of the card. Carson, you're in front of it. Read the card for the audience, and then, Brian, I want your thoughts on each fight that Carson tells you.
Well, my thing here is if we start right out in the middleweight championship, is there any chance in your mind that you see Yushin Okami being able to beat Anderson Silva?
I mean, after seeing what Chael Sonnen did to Anderson Silva, yeah. Yushin Okami's a big middleweight. He's a big, strong guy, and if he takes him down and just wears him down, it won't be flashy. It won't be what the fans want to see, but I could see him potentially grinding one out. The thing is with that, though, is that Anderson's the champion. It's going to be in Brazil. If it's going to come down to a decision, it's got to be a dominant
So you think this is the home field is going to affect the officiating? You really think that's a factor?
Oh, the name and where it is, to some degree. Like a guy like Randy Couture, when he fought Brandon Vera. I thought he dominated the fight. On paper, he did. Came to a decision, Couture got it. It was one of his last fights. That's just one example. I just think the way the officiating is, you never know. The one rule that Dana White always says is you never want to put it in the hands of the judges, and just for that very reason.
In the next one, you got Mauricio Shogun Hua against Forrest Griffin. Of course, Shogun not far removed from his light heavyweight championship. He lost that to John Jones in his last fight. And then you've got Forrest Griffin, a guy who had back-to-back losses and now back-to-back victories. Could we possibly see a reemergence from Griffin there in the light heavyweight division?
Well, I'll tell you, if he beats Shogun, three in a row, he's up there in the title picture again. But yeah, this is going to be a huge fight for Shogun. John Jones kind of humbled him. Everyone thought Shogun, after his domination of Machida, both those fights, everyone thought Shogun was just untouchable. But John Jones, that's how scary John Jones is. So yeah, this is going to be a huge fight, and if Forrest Griffin pulls it out, I put him up there 1, maybe 2 fights away from a title fight. And
it seems like Big Nog fighting against Brendan Schaub, it seems like Nogueira is one of these guys now who gets kind of put against the guys coming up, the contenders. So he sort of has to ward off all these young guns while still trying to stay relevant in the UFC. How do you see his bout with Brendan Schaub folding out here?
This might have fight of the night over it, but you're absolutely right. Big Nog, towards the end of his career, and the UFC, what they do is they use these names to, you're right, get these up-and-comers a chance to prove themselves. Brendan Schaub is a beast. He's 6'4" stand-up fighter, and undefeated. He's 4-0 in the UFC. Coming out of the Ultimate Fighter, he lost in the championship to Roy Nelson. We didn't think he was going to be that great, but he's proved us wrong. And if he beats Big Nog, then he's on the cusp of becoming a contender. He's top 10 if he beats Big Nog, though. But I'm picking Big Nog in that fight. I know I'm kind of been wishy-washy. I'm going Big Nog. He's got a great chin, and I think he's got more steam in that tank.
We talked a little bit a few minutes ago about Pearson and Barboza, and this is where I think that home field advantage that you were talking about, or I guess that home octagon advantage, really comes in with Barboza. The Brazilian crowd, is going to be heavily in favor of him against the Englishman and Pearson, and people are really high on the guy that's 8-0 right now coming into this lightweight bout.
He's one of those guys who are on the who to watch list for the next couple years. He's 25, young kid. He beat this guy, Anthony Nkwani, last March, a Shogun Jones card. And this guy was supposed to be the next real deal, and he came out and just put it on him. So Ross has his hands full. The thing is with these home octagon advantages is that you got to remember, these people are flying all over the world to these fights. So the fact that you're able to stay in your native land, to get that training, to get just accustomed to what you are used to and the time and everything, that plays a huge role, I feel. It's going to be great. I'm taking Ross. I am taking Ross in this fight, though, because I think Ross is the real deal. Play on his name. I really do.
That was good. We should have gotten the drum roll beats
in
there.
Right. That wasn't planned.
Brian owns the rights to the.
Was too busy talking about his result of the.
Maybe I'll throw those in post-production.
Exactly. Looking at the final event of this main card, Luis Kane and Stanislav Nedkov. Now, most people know about Kane. He's a UFC veteran, bounced around for a while. Nedkov, completely new. What do we know about him, if anything? I know he's undefeated. He's a Bulgarian MMA fighter, but he's kind of an unknown, I guess, at least to us here looking from the outside.
Yeah, no, he is unknown. I mean, he's 11-0, but this is a tough task, man. He's making his debut in the UFC on the main event card in one of the biggest cards ever. That right there is going to have to play on you. I don't know much about him, but I like the record, And Luis Kane, he doesn't really do it for me. He was one of these guys who, a couple years ago, was, on a 8-fight win streak. He was 10-1 to start off, and then he ran into,
he's bounced around. I mean, it's really been one of those things where he's almost hit his peak of his career, as high as he's going to climb in the light heavyweight rankings, and now he's just sort of plateaued off.
I agree with that. I wouldn't be surprised if the new guy comes in there and shows Kane what's up.
Ooh, a little upset there. A little lean there. I like that.
And by the way, my picks will be on ESPN1080.com.
Right here, yeah. And you'll be able to hear this preview of UFC 134. We'll do this from time to time. That is our MMA expert, insider, Brian Wininger, Carson Ingle. I'm Eric Lopez. This is ESPN 1080, The Team.
Heel contact has been attempted but cannot be established. Instructions are to prepare for an attack by an unknown enemy.
ESPN Radio 1080, The Team.